Billionaire father sees Afro-Latina waitress let disabled son lead a dance step, and then changes her life forever. The silence that fell over Prescott's Los Angeles's most exclusive restaurant was so thick it seemed to have weight. Conversations ceased, cutlery froze in midair, and dozens of eyes fixed on the small space between the tables. 11-year-old Jaden Whitaker was visibly shaking his legs, trapped in metal braces, wavered as he reached out to Sofia Morales, the restaurant's only Afro-Latina waitress. The live piano had just begun. A soft melody, and the boy's impulse to ask someone to dance came without warning. "Sir, control your son." Manager Franklin's sharp voice cut through the silence. "That's inappropriate. This is not a dance hall, and our employees are not here to entertain children." Nathaniel Whitaker, owner of Whitaker Global Holdings and one of the richest men in the country, swallowed hard. It was the first time he had taken Jaden out to dinner in public since the accident that had partially paralyzed his legs 2 years earlier. A mistake he would not repeat. "Jaden, sit down." The order came low but firm. Sofia remained motionless, her gaze shifting between the manager, the billionaire, and the boy, whose hand was still hanging in the air. In her 6 years working there, she had learned to become invisible, especially to customers like Whitaker. "Mr. Franklin, I'm leaving. My shift is over." Her voice sounded calm as she removed her apron and placed it on the tray. Then, to everyone's amazement, she smiled at Jaden and took his hand. "I can't dance in an apron." Nathaniel stood up abruptly. "What do you think you're doing?" Sofia held his gaze. "I'm accepting an invitation, sir, before anyone could interfere." Jaden took a hesitant step forward. His foot dragged painfully across the floor, and the metal of his braces screeched. But Sofia didn't try to guide him or hurry him. She simply adjusted her own pace to his. "She's getting fired tomorrow," whispered a woman at the next table. Nathaniel watched, paralyzed. A sudden memory struck him. Melissa, his late wife, dancing with Jaden in the living room. "It's not about perfection," she had said. "It's about connection." As Sofia followed Jaden's clumsy steps, something in the boy's eyes changed. Fear gave way to intense concentration. Shame gave way to shy pride. For the first time since the accident, he wasn't being guided, helped, or corrected. He was leading. "Mr. Whitaker," the manager's voice interrupted his thoughts. "I can assure you, this will never happen again. She will be properly disciplined." Nathaniel didn't respond. The entire restaurant seemed to wait for his reaction. After all, a man of his power could end anyone's career with a single word. Employees stopped what they were doing. Other customers watched with morbid curiosity. Jaden's smile, however, was the only sound that echoed in his mind. Sofia led the boy back to the table after 3 dance steps. "Thank you." She turned to leave. Nathaniel stopped her wait. His voice sounded different, almost unrecognizable to himself. "What's your full name?" "Sofia Morales." Sir. Nathaniel nodded. Slowly, "Sofia Morales," he repeated as if memorizing it. Then he took a card from inside his jacket and held it out to her. "My office tomorrow at 1000 a.m. The entire restaurant held its breath. Sofia accepted the card without showing any emotion, but her hand trembled slightly. "Dad," Jaden called as she walked away. "Why did you do that?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Nathaniel watched his son and a brief moment saw not just the child Melissa had left in his care, but a complete human being whose wants and needs he had systematically ignored for 2 years. As dinner proceeded in awkward silence, no one noticed Sofia's glance before. She left not out of fear or resignation, but out of a calm determination that contrasted with the storm brewing in Nathaniel Whitaker's eyes. If this story about dignity and transformation is already touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow how a simple gesture of respect can spark a silent revolution capable of transforming lives forever. The lobby of Whitaker Tower sparkled with its glass and marble walls reflecting the morning sunlight. Sofia Morales immediately felt out of place in her best outfit, a navy blue skirt and white blouse bought on sale. She had chosen the outfit carefully, despite knowing her rent was already 2 weeks overdue. The people passing by her wore clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Sofia Morales to see Mr. Whitaker," she said to the receptionist, who examined her with a clinical gaze. "Before making a call, 18th floor, Miss Ellison will see you in the elevator." Sofia took a deep breath, clutching her worn purse to her chest. A sharp ache tugged at her lower back. 6 hours on her feet before this. It wasn't fear. She felt it was a quiet determination that came from having faced worse, much worse. Miss Ellison was a woman in her 40s with a sharp gaze and impeccable posture. Mr. Whitaker is in a conference call. Please follow me. As she walked through the mirrored hallways, Sophia felt the curious stares of the employees. An Afro-Latina woman being escorted through the executive offices was a rare enough occurrence to cause speculation. Had you fired? Didn't he? Ellison asked suddenly. When they were alone in a waiting room, it happens. Powerful. Clients call and people like you lose their jobs. People like me, you know what I mean. Ellison adjusted her glasses. Employees who don't know their place? Sophia smiled, not amused. And where exactly would that be? Sophia had heard that phrase before, dressed up in different words, but it always meant the same thing before Ellison could answer. Her phone rang. He'll see you now. Nathaniel Whitaker's office took up half the floor. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Los Angeles looked like a distant playground. The man stood gazing out at the city as if it were his personal property. Mr. Whitaker, Sophia greeted him. Formally, Nathaniel turned his face. A mask of studied control. Miss Morales, thank you for coming. He pointed to a chair. Please, the silence that followed was calculated, a tactic Sophia recognized immediately. It was the kind of silence designed to make nervous people talk too much, incriminate themselves. Do you have a background? Nathaniel finally asked. Excuse me. Education, college. Sophia kept her gaze steady. Bachelor's degree in child development from UCLA. Incomplete master's degree in special education. Something flashed across Nathaniel's face. Surprise? Perhaps. And you work as a waitress. I work 3 jobs actually, the restaurant, a bookstore on weekends, and as a tutor, when I can get students. Nathaniel moved to her table, picking up a folder. I did some research on you, Miss Morales. I wanted to understand who the person was, who he hesitated. Danced with my son. He opened the folder, revealing printed photos of a community center, Rhythm Rise. You founded that 6 years ago. Sophia sat up straighter in her chair. I co-founded it with my sister Marisol, a dance program for children with physical disabilities. Nathaniel leafed through some documents, which is now about to close due to lack of funding. Sophia showed no surprise. Of course, he would find all that out in less than 24 hours. I didn't come here to ask you for money. Mr. Whitaker, then? Why did you come? Because you invited me. Nathaniel laughed softly, a joyless sound. Fair enough. He stood up again, restless. I want you to work for me. Sophia blinked, genuinely taken aback. As a waitress in your house. Nathaniel's face hardened. As a therapeutic companion for Jaden. His son's name seemed difficult for him to say. Sophia noticed how his eyes momentarily drifted to a photo on the table. A smiling woman holding a baby. I have the best specialists in the country. Nathaniel continued, physical therapists, neurologists, psychologists, but what you did yesterday. He paused as if the words betrayed him. It was just a dance, Mr. Whitaker. It was the first time I've seen him smile since the accident. The admission was painful. I don't want a dancer for my son. I want someone who can do what you did. Follow, not lead. Sophia studied the man in front of her beneath the facade of power and control. She saw what others might not, a desperate lost father. I can pay you 5 times what you're making. Now Sophia stood up. No, Nathaniel looked shocked, like someone unaccustomed to hearing that word. I don't work for people who see only my color or my social class before they see my competence. She explained calmly, and I definitely don't work for people who try to buy solutions to emotional problems. Nathaniel's face flushed. You're turning down an offer that would solve your financial problems out of pride, out of dignity. Sophia corrected, and because your son deserves more than someone hired to pretend to care. She walked to the door, then paused. Jaden doesn't need more experts. He needs space to lead his own life. You don't know my son. No, Sophia agreed. But I know people like him. People whose physical limitations are nothing compared to the invisible cages. We build around them. She took a card from her purse and placed it on the table. Rhythm, Rise, classes, on Tuesdays and Thursdays 400 p.m. If you'd like to bring Jaden, the first class is free. As Sophia left, she passed Ellison, who had obviously been listening. Behind the door, you just turned down an offer from Nathaniel Whitaker. She whispered incredulously. Are you crazy? Sophia smiled. Maybe. but I'd rather be crazy than be property. The following Wednesday, Sophia was at the reception desk of the community center when Marisol, her sister and co-founder of the project, came running up. There's a Bentley parked outside. She whispered nervously, adjusting her scarf, and you won't believe who's inside, through the window. Sophia saw the luxurious car. Jaden was in the back seat. Looking anxiously out the window, Nathaniel remained in the driver's seat, his hands still on the steering wheel as if fighting an internal battle. He's not coming in. Marisol predicted men like him don't come to places like this. Sophia smiled, remembering Jaden's gaze during those brief moments of dancing. Don't underestimate the power of a determined son, as they watched the car door open. Jaden got out slowly, adjusting his gadgets. Then, to everyone's surprise, Nathaniel got out too. The billionaire looked out of place in his casual pants and sweater, an obvious attempt to dress less formally but still screaming privilege. I told you he'd come, Sophia murmured more to herself. Marisol stared at her. What did you do? Sophia didn't answer, but her eyes sparkled with a secret that not even her sister fully knew. In her tiny apartment in East LA, hidden under her bed was a notebook filled with notes about children, like Jaden, and men, like Nathaniel Whitaker. Years of observation, research, and a plan that had begun with a simple acceptance of an invitation to dance. What Nathaniel Whitaker didn't know, what he couldn't imagine in his world of glass towers and endless bank accounts, was that Sophia Morales wasn't just a waitress who had agreed to dance with his son. She was a woman with a mission, and his empire of isolation and privilege was about to face its greatest challenge. The simple truth that some of the greatest lessons in life cannot be bought. They must be lived. Rhythm, Rise, operated out of an old community warehouse, handmade posters decorated the walls with phrases like "Your rhythm, your rules, and every move counts." When Nathaniel and Jaden entered, children with various types of mobility devices practiced free movements to the sound of a light beat. Mr. Whitaker, Sophia approached, wearing simple clothes with the program logo. Welcome. Jaden watched the children in awe. A girl in a wheelchair spun in precise circles, while a boy with a prosthetic leg created a sequence of steps. It looks chaotic. Nathaniel commented, visibly uncomfortable. There is structure, Sophia replied. It's just not the one you recognize. She turned to Jaden. Would you like to join in? The boy nodded enthusiastically, but looked at his father hesitant. Go on, Nathaniel said tensely. I'll be right here. As Sophia guided Jaden to the group, Marisol approached Nathaniel and offered him a chair. The first day is always the hardest, she commented, for the parents, not the kids. This isn't therapy, Nathaniel argued. I hired the best rehabilitation specialists. And how has that been working for Jaden? Marisol asked gently. The studio door opened. An older woman entered, leaning on an ornate cane. She had gray hair in elegant braids and a commanding presence. Dr. Elaine Mercer. Marisol whispered, neuroscientist specializing in brain plasticity, retired from Stanford. The woman greeted several children before noticing Nathaniel. Mr. Whitaker, you've rejected my research proposal 3 times in the last 2 years. Dr. Mercer. I didn't expect to see you here. I oversee the research program. She explained, we're studying how non-directive approaches to movement affect neural reconfiguration in children with motor challenges. Research? Nathaniel frowned. I thought this was just a community dance class. Sophia returned, leaving Jaden exploring movements with another child. Rhythm, Rise is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on the theory of movement autonomy, she explained. We integrate adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles. Why do you work as a waitress? If you lead a research program because we don't have adequate funding yet and because people like you rejected us 3 times. The penny dropped. You were Dr. Mercer's assistant on the proposals. Co-author, Dr. Mercer corrected. Sophia has an incomplete master's degree because she had to leave college to take care of her sister, but her theoretical work is groundbreaking. You knew who I was at the restaurant, Nathaniel concluded from the moment you walked in. Sophia confirmed. And when Jaden got up to dance, I recognized the opportunity to show, not tell. Was it stage the dance? Absolutely not. Jaden chose to get up. I chose to follow. A group of reporters entered the studio. Nathaniel immediately tensed. What's this? Part 2 of the plan. Sophia smiled slightly. Marisol showed Nathaniel a newly published article, Revolutionary Motor Rehabilitation Methodology. Shows promising results. We published our first results today, Dr. Mercer explained, and we invited the press. You used my son for a public relations stunt. Nathaniel's voice was pure ice. Sophia led him into a side room where photos of dozens of children adorned the walls, each with handwritten progress statistics. On the last wall was an empty frame. What's that? He asked. Our future, the full rehabilitation center. We could build, if we had the resources, 500 children a year instead of 50 you orchestrated. All this, Nathaniel muttered. The dance, the meeting bringing me here on press day. I saw an opportunity and took it. 4 months ago, when you canceled our meeting without reading the proposal, I promised myself I'd find a way. Sophia. Marisol interrupted. It's Jaden. They rushed back. Jaden was in the center of the room, surrounded by other children. Someone had turned off the music and everyone watched in silence. The boy had removed one of his braces and was trying to balance on just one support. Jaden. Nathaniel started forward, but Sophia stopped him. Wait. She whispered. Watch. Jaden took a deep breath, focused. Then, to everyone's amazement, especially his father's, he took a complete step without full support. It was small, shaky, but entirely his. The children cheered. Camera flashes went off. Nathaniel's face, usually composed and unreadable, was now exposed with unshed tears glistening in his eyes. That's why we created rhythm. Rise, Sophia said softly. It's not about perfect steps. It's about first steps on your own. Nathaniel watched his son not as a problem to be managed, but as a complete person discovering his own strength. This could have been done without manipulating me, he said finally. It could have been if you had answered our calls or read our proposals 3 times. The reporters noticed Nathaniel. A murmur grew as Jaden, oblivious to the tension, continued, practicing his new step with an expression of pure concentration. Nathaniel Whitaker was cornered. Before him lay 2 options: withdraw in anger, confirming to the press his reputation as cold and calculating, or embrace the moment his son had created between the power he had always wielded and the freedom his son needed. Nathaniel found himself in unfamiliar territory, one where neither his money nor his influence defined the next step. The man who controlled every aspect of his life now faced a choice that no amount of wealth could buy. His gaze shifted between his smiling son and the reporters waiting for his reaction. Humility was not a virtue in his vocabulary. But as he saw the transformation on Jaden's face, something inside him began to break the orchestra of power and privilege. He was accustomed to now played a different tune, and he had to decide. Would he continue conducting, or would he learn to follow Nathaniel Whitaker? Faced the reporters waiting for his reaction, his son had just taken a step on his own in front of the cameras, and Sophia Morales had skillfully led him to this impossible moment. Mr. Whitaker, a reporter approached. Could you comment on your presence at Rhythm Rise today? Is it true that your foundation rejected funding this program 3 times? Nathaniel glanced at Jaden, who was still practicing his new step, oblivious to the political tension. Then, to everyone's surprise, especially Sophia's, he smiled. You know what's hardest for someone in my position? Nathaniel addressed the reporter, but spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Admitting when we're wrong. A stunned silence filled the room. The Whitaker Foundation is pleased to announce a commitment to fully fund Rhythm Rise for the next 5 years and to build a permanent rehabilitation center based on the methodology developed by Dr. Mercer and Ms. Morales. Camera flashes exploded. Marisol let out a cry of surprise. On one condition, he added, watching Sophia tense up, that Ms. Morales retain complete autonomy over the program and its methodology. No corporate interference. 3 months later, bulldozers were clearing the ground for the new Rhythm Rise Rehabilitation Center. The project wasn't the most luxurious the Whitaker Foundation had ever funded, but it was the most innovative, with every space designed with direct input from the children and their families. Sophia supervised the construction frequently, but never alone. Jaden showed up regularly, sometimes bringing other children with him. And to the staff's continued surprise, Nathaniel Whitaker also showed up silently, observing the progress. I never thought you'd actually show up at board meetings, Sophia commented one afternoon as they reviewed the plans. I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 50. Nathaniel replied, rubbing his tired eyes in front of him was a scientific article marked with post-it notes. But here we are. Sophia looked at the man. Curiously, is this part of your public penance? Or do you really care? Jaden asked to have his second brace removed last week. I know he told me his previous physical therapist said that would be impossible for at least 2 years. Sophia smiled, but you fired her. Remember, because you told me she was wrong and she was Sophia. Pointed to a photo of Jaden balancing with only one crutch. He's progressing faster than any traditional medical prediction. Why did you never accept my apology? Nathaniel asked. Suddenly, because you never apologized, you redirected, resources changed, policies funded our program. That's not an apology. It's compensation. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Fair again at the opening ceremony. 6 months later, the contrast with that night in the restaurant couldn't have been greater. The huge adaptive space was filled with children with various types of mobility devices, all moving freely in the center of the main hall. Jaden, now wearing only a lightweight brace on his left leg, led a small choreographed routine with 3 other children. His movements were still limited, but they flowed with a confidence no doctor had predicted. Nathaniel watched from a distance, not interfering. He doesn't need you to hold him anymore, Sophia said, approaching quietly. No, Nathaniel agreed, but he still needs me to be around. Crucial difference. Nathaniel turned to face her. Thank you, he said simply. For what exactly? For teaching me to follow. A reporter approached. Mr. Whitaker, how does it feel to see your son's progress? Nathaniel looked at Jaden, who is now helping a younger girl find her balance, proud not of what he's overcome, but of what he's created for others. And what's been the biggest lesson you've learned on this journey? Nathaniel Whitaker, the man who had once been known only for his financial empire, looked directly into the camera. That true leaders aren't those who guide others down the path they believe is right, but those who have the courage to follow when someone shows them a better way. A year later, the Rhythm Rise program expanded to 3 new cities. Sophia received the Pediatric Rehabilitation Innovation Award, and her methodology began to be implemented in hospitals across the country. Jaden, now using only a light cane on difficult days, enrolled in regular school and became a youth spokesperson for the program, inspiring other children to find their own pace. And Nathaniel learned the hardest and most valuable lesson of all, that true power does not lie in controlling every move, but in knowing when it is time to take a step back and let others lead the way, in a world where powerful people rarely change their perspectives and where those without power often remain in the shadows. The story of Nathaniel, Sophia, and Jaden reminds us that true transformation occurs when we cross the invisible boundaries that separate us, when a billionaire learns from a waitress, when a father follows in his son's footsteps. If this story about how a simple gesture of dignity changed lives forever touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to our channel, because we believe that the most profound revolutions don't start with grand manifestos or billion-dollar fortunes. They start when someone has the courage to take an authentic first step, and someone else has the wisdom to